Well, joining me now is former Conservative Minister Anne Widdecombe and historian Dr. Tessa Dunlop, also with us, Royal Editor of the Sunday Times, Roya, Nikkhah, and former BBC Royal Editor Jennie. So a veritable galaxy of luminaries to debate this. Let me start with you, Roya, again, because you had a big story on Sunday in which your sources at the palace were basically indicating that notwithstanding the onslaught that's come their way, King Charles in particular was prepared to consider reconciliation before the coronation in May. Now, I've got to say, before I get you to talk about that, my own sources tonight, who I would describe as pretty impeccable, believe that's a bit of a reach, say that Charles is absolutely livid, and actually reconciliation right now is most definitely not on the cards. There's been no contact whatsoever with anyone in Montecito, and that may well stay the same. So let's thrash out our sources here. How confident are you that you think that Charles really does want to reconcile with somebody who's really shown that any attempt to do anything just immediately gets commercialised?
Well, good evening, Piers. I think, sources aside, if you speak to people who really know the King, they will tell you that he absolutely does not want to be estranged from his son for the rest of his life. There is no doubt that Charles is livid. The whole royal family are pretty livid about what Harry has done. But we have a few months now, very, very crucial months, leading up to the coronation. And actually, one of the most extraordinary lines in that book was Harry's revelation that Charles said to him and William after Philip's funeral, "Please, boys, don't make the rest of my life a misery," which at the moment Harry is doing a very good job of. But what Charles will not want, really won't want, is estrangement from his son forever and any kind of major overshadowing of the coronation. And if there is nothing done, no contact at all between now and the coronation, I really do think we're going to keep hearing from Harry and Meghan in a very negative way. And Charles will want to avoid that.
But you know what my response would be? It's like, all right, keep yapping if you want to. You've done your worst. Honestly, keep yapping and just completely ignore them. Don't invite them to any royal events. I mean, Jennie Bond, why the hell should they be invited to a coronation? It's the people's coronation. It's our coronation for our monarch. All they've done, these two, is damage the monarchy, damage the reputation of that institution, damage their family, the royal family, on which the monarchy's future depends. What on earth have they done to deserve an invitation to a coronation? Where it's not just Charles, by the way, it's Camilla as well getting crowned, who Harry just trashed in his book.
Yeah. Well, I think, this is the most important day probably in the whole of Charles's life. And if, as the loving father, which I believe him to be, he wants his younger son to be there, then I think that is his right and his privilege. And I think an invitation will be extended to them. I think to not invite them really is going to be feeding the hind that bites Charles. So it'd be wise to invite them. And if they do come, I think we, the media, actually should take it upon ourselves not to make it overshadow the coronation. I mean, we don't want to have screaming headlines about them. So I think we should just have a footnote at the bottom of our coverage of the coronation and say also in attendance were the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. I think that might be one approach.
I'd like a footnote to drag them out in that eventuality. Let me bring in Tessa Dunlop. Look, you are the great apologist for Meghan and Harry. Here's my question for you. Why would two people who hate everything the royals seem to stand for, hate the monarchy, are intent on destroying it, have done nothing but trash it and diminish it in the last 2 years, why on earth would they want to be at a coronation of the next monarch of this country?
Piers, I thought you'd read the full 400-plus pages of Spare. Then you will have got the message loud and clear. There is no macro Harry plan. He is a dyed-in-the-wool royalist.
No, he's not.
He doesn't... Yes,
no,
I'm afraid. He's going about it all the wrong way. He's done unspeakable damage, but he wants to save the monarchy, apparently. No, I'm being serious.
No, what he wants, Tessa, let me just respond to that. What he wants is to keep the titles, the royal titles for him and his wife, because it's the titles that make the money. And they're making hundreds of millions of dollars. His book, #1 global bestseller, his documentary series, huge success, blah, blah, blah. Of course it is. He's trashing the royal family from the inside.
This is a boy in pain who grew up... I'm so sorry.
Please.
I'm so sorry. Who grew up in a goldfish bowl.
Is he in pain or has he never been happy? Which one is it? He's telling us how happy he is.
Who grew up in a goldfish bowl, who's thrashing his way out of the gilded cage, but actually has realised he doesn't know how to exist without the gilded cage.
Oh, no, he does.
I, incidentally, am no apologist for Harry.
You are.
But I do apologise on your behalf, because one minute you sit there, Piers, and you say, oh, they'll keep yapping away, they should be ignored. There is no way, if they so much as fart, that you would ignore what they say. You stoke the boiler, you stoke the problems for the royal family.
Let me be clear. People say this to me, they go, why do you keep banging on about these two?
Why do you?
Because they keep trashing the royals. In podcasts, in books, in documentary series, in interviews. It never stops. And I say to them now, I will stop writing and commenting about them if they just shut up. Go to Camp Montecito, be the happy people you keep telling us that you are. Stop trashing the royal family. Stop attacking our monarchy. Stop diminishing this country. If you do that, I'll leave you alone.
You've just heard from the dignified Jennie Bond. Reduce it to a footnote, Piers, but you couldn't resist doing that because, like them, you make money from this.
Jennie.
Let's own it. You make money from this.
I bow to nobody. Of course I do. Everybody who's involved in covering the royals
my case.
Makes money. Well, you're making money appearing on this show tonight.
Thank you. Double time. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So you're making money too out of it. So let's not be hypocrites. Jennie Bond, look, no, I bow to nobody in my admiration of Jennie Bond, but she would have been the first in her previous capacity as the BBC's royal doyenne to probably not actually reduce them to a footnote at the coronation because she'd know it's a big, hot story. And this is the problem, Anne Widdecombe, isn't it?
Well,
is that unfortunately, everywhere they go, so does the lens of attention because they make it their job to make sure that we don't leave them alone.
That is exactly why I think they should not be at the coronation. For this reason, I ask myself a very straightforward question. Which will be the bigger circus? If they don't come or if they do come? And if they come, they're likely to be booed. We all know that. There'll be a lot of attention on them because they're there.
Well, that'll be the story. They get booed at the coronation.
Exactly. Whereas if they're in Montecito,
totally agree.
We're all free to concentrate on the coronation. So I feel very strongly they shouldn't come. I also, hang on, you had a long go. I also feel equally strongly that the royals should not be proposing a negotiation meeting. Because we've heard Harry's terms. He wants an abject surrender.
No, I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. This is the point. I mean, Roya, this is the problem I would have if I were Charles and William in particular, is how do you trust them? How do you trust them, given that almost all their private conversations with Harry have now appeared in this book, including really intimate stuff, including at Prince Philip's funeral and so on. How on earth can they trust him to have some sort of private meeting which stays private?
Well, that's a great question, and that's something that's even been acknowledged by sources close to Harry and Meghan, who've said to me, and I've written that even they acknowledge that there's an issue there that perhaps the royal family might not trust that private stays private. But what I would say is, as much as it might stick in the craw of many members of the royal family, particularly the ones you've just mentioned who come under heavy fire in the book, I think if the king isn't seen to somehow do something, I think he's going to come under even more heavy fire from his son and other people down the line. But that will be the great test. I think if they do propose some sort of, and I'm not saying a negotiation, but some sort of sit down, and then something leaks out and it comes from Harry and Meghan's side, then I think it probably is game over. But at least the king may have tried.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jennie Bond, I feel incredibly sorry for Charles. He's lost both his parents in the space of 2 years. He's probably still mourning his mother, who just died a few months ago. He's taken on the monarchy. You know, he's our new monarch. He's about to be crowned the king of this great country. I mean, all these huge pressures, both personally and professionally. And then he's got his young son causing just total, endless, relentless mayhem. I mean, if that was one of my sons, I've said to them, I've got 3 boys in their 20s. I say, one of you does this to me and goes rogue like this, that's it, bang. There won't be any reconciliation parties. You're done.
Well, you see, I don't think he wants to lose his son as well as having lost his parents. And I do think that Charles is quite a compassionate guy. And I think he would probably agree with me that what we're witnessing here is almost the unravelling of a youngish man who is so mentally fragile now and so confused. There are so many errors in the book. and conflicted within himself and really suffering. And
hang on, Jennie,
I agree
Jennie,
he's gone
Jennie,
a bit loopy. He said some terrible things. No,
All right,
but
Jennie,
I think we should show
to interrupt
some
you, but I want to pick you up on
compassion.
that thing about the mental health thing. I don't see somebody suffering or in pain. I see a smug little narcissist making a ton of cash, abusing and revealing secrets about his family. I don't see anyone fragile whatsoever. On the one hand, he says, I'm the happiest I've ever been. On the other hand, he wants us to believe he's a pain-struck young guy. He's not. He's nearly 40. He's had a long time to get over the pain that, by the way, millions of people have to go through, losing parents when they're young. It's not exclusive to him. His own brother went through exactly the same thing and doesn't seem to feel the need to trash his family in public. So I just don't really buy in, Jennie, to this, he's racked with pain and is so fragile. I think he doesn't give a damn about the damage to the mental health of all his relatives, and yet he's supposed to be the Prince of Mental Health.
I think he is racked with pain. And in his book, I thought it was very, very moving when he said that went for a second lot of therapy. He was frightened of losing the pain he had felt for all those years for the loss of his mother. He was frightened of losing that pain in the therapy because he would lose his mother again. And I thought it was incredibly moving. Now, I'm not going to defend Harry for all he's done and all he's said. A lot of it's abominable. Most of it's loopy. And I agree. I think he's a little bit unbalanced and deluded, perhaps because all the drugs he took. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I do have compassion for his mental health.
No, I think he's a Californian dope-head. You meet them all the time when you're out there. Tessa Dunlop, you've been raging away as normal here. What have I said that's wrong?
You are renowned for lacking empathy. I won't use...
I've got plenty of empathy.
What? No, I'm so sorry, he's renowned for it.
No, actually, I'm not renowned for it. I'm not renowned for it. No,
I actually
have a lot of empathy for the right people. Actually, and my entire career,
I've actually shown empathy.
No, I show empathy for people who deserve it. Harry is not deserving of my empathy.
In your opinion,
he has zero empathy for anybody else that he's trashing.
As somebody who has watched Harry from birth through the death of his mother, you don't have a shred of empathy for his peculiar lifestyle that's trained him for nothing.
No,
that's left him with dump loads of expectations and shed loads of pain. Did you not go to prep school?
No, I think he's...
Imagine going to prep school and your mum steamrolled beds.
Actually, I went to prep school until I was 13, actually. And then I went to a state school.
Now imagine you're...
Then I went to a state school, and actually, what he should have done is go to a state school. And you're grimacing.
Yeah, I'm absolutely... Just calm down, the pair of you.
I'm perfectly calm.
Neither of you sounded at the moment. Now... Can I just point this out?
Pretty rich coming from you. You're normally the one blowing up, but go on.
I've actually sat here trying to get a word in edgeways for a long time, as you know.
Come on.
I mean, let me make this point. The coronation is not just a personal occasion. Now, you can understand a father wants to involve his son in all sorts of things, but it's not a royal wedding. It's a coronation. It's an occasion of state. And you've got to ask yourselves, what is the most dignified way that we can have this? Because it is an occasion of state. And therefore, there must be a great deal of dignity. That won't be by having Harry present.
I totally agree. It would be literally like having the Kardashians sitting there. Please stay with me, my panel here. Roya, we're going to say goodbye to. Roya, another busy week for you. I know you're writing busily away again, presumably for your next big scoop on Sunday. So thank you. We look forward to speaking to you about that whenever it drops. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.